This is Decarbonize the World with Frank Deline, solving the climate crisis while increasing profits in your business. Here's Frank.
As our country faces a power crisis, we're going to need strong partnerships to solve the problem. Schneider Electric and national builder KB Home are two companies that have teamed up to find a solution. Joining me this week is Bradford Wills, the Director of Strategic Customers and Programs at Schneider Electric, and Jacob Atalla, the VP of Sustainability Initiatives at KB Home. Brad, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Frank. Appreciate the time and opportunity.
Jacob, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Frank. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Brad, before we talk about Schneider's partnership with KB Home, can you tell us some of the initiatives that your company has taken to go carbon neutral in its operations by 2025 and have net zero emissions by 2030?
Yeah, so, besides the fact that we look to make our final products more sustainable in how they're built and the materials they're built from, we have an extensive initiative where we've gone out to our top 1,000 suppliers that constitute over 70% of everything we buy for the products that we make. And we have gotten a very high participation rate of over 900 of those suppliers that have committed to us to work with us to drive for a net zero supply chain by 2025.
And you've made a commitment to go carbon neutral also?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that. What are you doing?
Well, we've taken a lot of, part of Schneider's business actually is deploying solutions in industrial and commercial applications for making those plants more energy sustainable. So we're taking the very things that we sell to other companies and we're practicing what we preach, if you will, and we're applying that to our own factories. So, for instance, our load center plant in Lexington has had our EcoStructure solution put in place to drive down the amount of it, not only electricity usage, but also water usage, and to drive that down to a decarbonized and net zero solution that implements, solar along with what we're using from the grid to get to a greener solution.
Good. Is the system there, is that a net meter system, or are you totally independent from the grid?
It's a net meter. So we're on the grid still, but we, for instance, that plant used generators. It still has generators, but it uses those generators a lot less for backup resiliency because we have the solar and battery implementation.
Excellent. So Jacob, we have a lot in common. We're builders here in the Hamptons, and I've seen that you've been working for over 25 years in sustainable building to innovate the home of the future. How did you find yourself on that path?
Well, I'm an architect by education and always had a love for designing and building homes that are right for homeowners that will live in them. That word right evolved over time. And in the recent years, it's been a passion of mine to include in it the efficiency of the home, the comfort of the home, but as importantly, the efficiency of the home from a natural resources perspective. So I started focusing a lot on sustainability, and that's where you and I share some common traits.
Thank you for everything that you're doing there. That's really incredible, and it makes you leaders in our industry, and that's awesome. So Brad, talk to me about the collaboration with KB Home. How did it start to come together?
Yeah, and fortunately, the two companies, Schneider and KB, as well as Jacob and I personally have a long, almost 20-year relationship over time. So we've, part of this is really just based on that long history and the ability of the two companies to trust each other when we try new things. And KB has been consistently on the forefront of saying, yes, let's go try that. Let's pilot that somewhere. And so as we started talking about our new grid-to-plug connected home solutions, we naturally came to KB Home first and to Jacob, and he helped us on that journey to find a place where we could try that out. And that turned out to be the the Sundance Park Circle community.
Jacob, why was Schneider Electric the right fit for your team?
Schneider is an innovator. Everybody who doesn't know the name Square D, everybody knows Square D, and
absolutely,
all of us as builders, you and us as well, have grown to trust the Square D brand and for innovations, for product quality and safety. And it starts there. It's the trust, and then you say, okay, how can we innovate together? And raise your hand to say, I'm ready to innovate with you. And again, they never disappoint. They always have innovations that we continue to collaborate with them on it. The latest is just fantastic, and I'm eager to tell you more about it.
Yeah, we understand also that Square D is pretty much the standard in electrical services and things like that. So that's very cool. Brad, the project in California addresses these issues we've been discussing through the development of their Sundance at Park Circle community, which acts as a blueprint for sustainable and resilient home building for the industry. Can you give us some context on what you're building there?
Yeah, so what we looked at is we said, okay, California is, as is often the case, is on the forefront of looking at implementing energy sustainable solutions through Title 24 and whatnot. And one of those was the requirement for solar to be put on every new home. So, as soon as you have to have solar on every new home, that changes the whole dynamic. And really, it breaks the old idea that a home is only going to have one source of electricity, right? So now we said, okay, we got to start thinking about this differently. And homes are not only going to have electricity from the grid, they're going to have electricity from solar panels. They may also add a battery in conjunction with that. They may also have a generator, and they ultimately might buy an EV that they could use to charge their home. So if you add those all up, all of a sudden you have 4 or 5 different sources or paths of electricity coming into the home. And we said, we got to think of this differently, because if we don't, then you're going to end up with 10 different enclosures and boxes, and it's going to look like an industrial facility. So we said, okay, if you look at a typical solar installation for residents, you're going to have those 4, 5, 6 different enclosures, plus maybe a battery. And we said, why don't we squash that down? Why don't we take all of that, integrate that into the load center or the distribution center of the home? And while we're doing that from a mechanical and electrical connection standpoint, why don't we get this thing connected to the internet and start looking at the energy usage, not just in total, because total energy usage is interesting, but it ends up begging the next question, which is, where exactly am I using that energy? Is it my HVAC? Is it my oven? Is it my dryer? Where are my electric water heater? Where am I using the most energy, and what can I do about it? So that's where we've really broken that paradigm, and that gray box that sits in your garage that you never pay attention to is now, well, first of all, it's not gray anymore, but it's connected to the internet, and it gives you not only the ability to monitor what's going on in your home down to the plug level and appliance level, but to also provide you control. And really what our aim is we want to prevent the homeowner from having to become the facility manager of their house, right? So when you look at all the dynamics that are now going on between dynamic electricity pricing, resiliency events, whether there's abnormal storms in Texas, hurricanes in Louisiana, safety outages in California, that resiliency part is very important as well. And if we don't have a connected solution that a homeowner can use to say, okay, when prices do this, or when the grid power goes out, I want this to happen, and create a set it and forget it ability for the homeowner, then they're going to end up having to spend a lot more of their quality family time managing their house like they would, a manager would in an industrial facility. And that's not what we want, really. We're creating a connected solution and allow them to set it and forget it, optimize their energy usage for when and how they need to use it, allow them to easily avoid spike pricing in electricity where there's demand-based pricing and all those things.
Excellent. Jacob, how are home builders incorporating sustainable materials and technology in their homes to increase efficiency and resilience? And I also want you to talk about, if you can, about how you actually reduce the consumption of electricity to fit into all of this.
Sure. So KB Home starts with the premise of reduce before you produce. We always look to increase the energy efficiency and the electric load requirement for a home before we put solar on top of it. At a bigger picture, you think about, you and I are builders and know that a home is a system and we have to look at it as an integrated system. Therefore, we need to curate the best possible materials and components in it in a way that balances between sustainability and affordability. Always a critical balance there. After the reduce before you produce, we even go further than that by saying every home we build, we want to certify it to the EPA Energy Star New Homes program. And that gives us additional savings for us and our customers. We start at a lower number of kilowatt hours needed to operate the house. And then beyond that, we start loading solar on top of the house as it's required in California. And from there, you start looking at these other new components that maybe are coming from innovators such as Schneider Square D. So we were very happy with the load center that Brad just described that allows the home to be part of a smart grid and maybe even participate in grid services. So that's really our fundamental approach to this for energy efficiency and resilience.
Awesome. I love that term, reduce before you produce. That's very catchy. And I agree with that philosophy. Jacob, what challenges are homeowners facing that can be solved with home energy management technology? I know sometimes a lot of these systems, especially with built-in AI, can take kind of the human factor out of it. Explain that a little bit to us.
Yeah, so the home of the future, or the home that, the smart home that we have today, is one that I personally think has a little bit too much clutter, with a lot of smart systems in it, right? Coming from different destinations, each one having their own way to operate an app and so on. I think that's part of the challenge for homeowners. And we can continue, we being the industry as well as the consumer electronics industry, we can continue to improve that. You know that Apple, Google, and Amazon came together with others and are now saying we're going to create one ecosystem for everybody.
Right.
And what it's called Matter. And what I love about it is that they're saying we're going to be able to push that into the firmware of existing devices so that we can simplify them, not just the future devices, but current devices. That would be amazing. That will help us start solving that challenge. When it comes to smart energy, smart electricity, I think the idea where it's, hey, do it for me, almost like energy as a service, is where it should be. And that's where there wouldn't be a new challenge that homeowners will be facing in the future. So I hope that the industry will continue to innovate towards seamless energy management and smart energy, including the grid services that every home can participate in, but without too much involvement by the homeowner. They can set the rules, set what they're comfortable with, and then let smart systems do the work for them.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. And in our industry, it's always been a challenge to integrate all these systems and controls. And I'm seeing more and more of this integration of technology. And I think that's the key. And on that note, let's take a break. But coming up in the second part of my discussion with Schneider Electric's Brad Wills and KB Home's Jacob Atalla, Brad has an aspirational message for the home building industry.
Builders need to take the steps that KB has taken to say, hey, let's not just meet the minimum standard on how this home is insulated. Let's insulate this home so it's more operationally efficient, for example, right? Because if you don't do those things with insulation and windows and et cetera, then you're applying our technology to a hemorrhaging patient.
This has been Decarbonize the World with Frank Deline. To connect with Frank and to learn more about clean energy, reducing fossil fuels, and increasing profits, go to frankdeline.com. Decarbonize the World is a production of Advantage Audio.